What's up, everybody? This is Brent from Divided Souls,
I'm Spank, one half of Divided Souls.
and you're watching The Beat Shine. Getting involved with music, the love for it comes from my family, the foundation. When I think of music, I think of her living room. I was blessed to have a big family of uncles and aunties that was in the real music, from Motown, Stax, Led Zeppelin, Parliament Funkadelic, Sam Cooke, James Brown, Good Soul and Blues Foundation. Got introduced to hip hop, went to Art Institute of Dallas in 91 to 93 and learned the audio mechanisms of it. First hip hop that really lit the fire in me to start production was the Bomb Squad for Public Enemy, man. Like, when I heard that stuff, it was, I couldn't even touch it. But when I went to school in Dallas, I interned at BMG, the Southwest division, and which was Jive Records was under there. So I had a gig where I do some promotions in Deep Ellum. Came across P Rock, Compton Most Wanted, Gangstarz. And when I heard P Rock and the EP, All Sold Out, when P Rock started with the production, that just had me like, man, some of these records I knew where they came from. Down south, you have Pimp C, N.O. Joe, who did all of Scarface's and Rap a Lot hits. Dr. Dre, of course, Battle Cat, Q-Tip, Diamond D, and the Beat Miners.
All right, early memories of music would have been my father playing music. God rest my father too. Playing a lot of old doo-wop stuff, a lot of Motown. Also like disco stuff in the 70s, Casey and the Sunshine Band, things of that nature. And so that really stuck with me, a lot of those sounds. And in terms of hip-hop, how I got introduced to hip-hop, because I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. So hip-hop wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. And my first memory was my friend Jeff. He brought over a Run DMC tape, the Raising Hell album. And I had an old GE tape recorder, literally. The cassette tape case thing would flip up, you slide it in, push it down. And the lid, I guess. And I remember him playing that tape, and specifically playing Peter Piper. And when he played Peter Piper and that break came in, that was it, man. When I heard that, I was hooked. I literally could not get enough hip-hop in my life after that. And it's been 30 years, let's be real with it. So
Teamed up with a guy named D Smooth Dwayne, R.I.P. to him, and my cousin Dexter. They called him Bone back then, but he go by Deckard Bar. He also has passed. So we formed a group and was just grinding, learning the equipment, buying a SO1 rack mount from Akaye, not knowing what a sequencer was. I just had to have a sampler, but it didn't have 15 seconds, and it was trial and error for about a good year and a half, just learning. From there, we opened up for some groups. My partner Spanky was connected at LSU, KLSU, so I had access to more records. We opened up for Outkast, one of my artists did. So we met up in Houston with a guy named Swift. He's also a Houston legend and one of my influences.
radio in Chicago at that time, WGCI had something called the Rap Down with Frankie J, Disco Dave, and Ramonski Love. I would listen every Saturday night, and a lot of the stuff that would come on, or a lot of late 80s hip-hop stuff, it was very memorable. For starters, in college, I used to have a radio show at Louisiana State. That's where I went, LSU. It was on KLSU in the 90s. And that's where just the love for the music deepened. And actually, that's how I met Brent. That was really one of the biggest things. And it's actually Brent, with a little-known fact, he's the one who showed me the production game. He was working with basically a tape deck and an Akai SO1 sampler, so there was no sequencer. So he would literally have to basically do pause tapes with this SO1. It was insane. And so it was that, inspiration and stuff like that. I said, I'm going to do this production stuff. And that was one way. A lot of local shows with artists in the Baton Rouge area. David Banner was one of the guys that used to come by my show. And he'd rap. He'd also perform some of the shows I was promoting. We developed a friendship from there. So it was just kind of a synergy going on for everyone to help get their names out. Shout out to Jeff B in New Orleans, great guy who was a big influence on me as far as promoting too.
The first piece of equipment we had was, the Kaya SO1. Google that, look that up. It was a rack mount with 15-second sample. I just know I had to have a sample. Prior to having that, I used to go through records, find breaks, write it down on a label or a piece of paper. This break, this record at this point, put the time I want to sample. So when I did get a sampler, man, I went crazy. From that, Spanky had hooked up with MPC 2000 and the SP 1200, and that just unlocked me. We've known about it for years, but from Louisiana, Baton Rouge, you didn't have that access to that. But when I did get one in '98, I just went crazy. Like the SP 1200 unlocked all that was in my mind as far as pattern-wise, because I couldn't do that on the rack mount. So once I got the drum machine and learned how to chop, extend, sustain, and sequence, like SP 1200 got some of the best sequencing functions ever. I just went crazy with that.
My family was not like real deep into hip hop like that. They weren't digging it like that. They didn't discourage me from listening, but at the same time, it wasn't like, wow, you're doing this hip hop stuff. Wow, that music, that Two Live Crew stuff, or that Ice-T stuff, or that Ghetto Boys stuff, or whomever, Cube, it doesn't matter. They weren't really into it, but they didn't discourage it either. They knew I loved it. They knew I was passionate about it. And they were happy when I made strides, but it was always there was a little bit of a reluctance, like, this is great, but could you maybe try, what about gospel? Or, or something else like that. And so it was a little, what I call reluctant support, but I know the love was still there. It was.
Working with Public Enemy and working with Scarface, and having a chance to try to work with KRS-One. Meeting Chuck D, that was a hip-hop high. I mean, that's my idol, that's my hero. I go through a brick wall for him, and I've been fortunate enough to work with legends, Hall of Famers, since 2009, and Scarface connected me with Chuck D. Yes, he just made a phone call on three-way one day, and Chuck, this is Brent, this is Chuck, gave him the stamp, and Chuck blessed us and gave us what was so flattering and humbling to me is that Chuck D gives me projects and tells me, Brent, go with it, do what you want to do. He gives me that freedom. And we also have our partner, DJ Payne Ones, who's very instrumental in our movement. I mean, he gives me the freedom to be creative, to go left field, and I can email him some stuff and say it makes sense in this. And he's a beast in his own right. The beauty of our company and our crew is we have extended musicians and writers that I can branch out more than just hip-hop, because I love music again. I come from that.
My all-time favorite album, hands down, of any genre, doesn't matter, is It Takes a Nation, a Million Sold Us Back, by far. And so to be able to do songs with Chuck, then to finally meet him, and for us to keep recording, that was massive, dude. I mean, I remember listening to that album in '88, and then to meet him was excellent. And then also to getting a chance seeing Premier just last night, on the other day, cutting up our records on Live from Headquarters. I'm a fan first, so to see that, him going back and forth, cutting up the records on Sirius last night, it was a dream come true. That's the best way to put it.
My proudest moment right now is when we did the song for Chuck D and Miss Mavis Staple, Give We the Pride. When music's done right, you can really affect people. You can put information in them so they can build on, put good vibes out there. Or it could be negative. Music is powerful. Being a part of that movement, I think we should have got nominated for a Grammy, because it was on the same message movement like John Legend and Common had. We just didn't have the machine behind us, but that's one of the proudest moments. And being able to, hip-hop is paying for me to be here. Selling music, selling drum sounds, whatnot, that paid for this here. So being able to make a living and to move around because of hip-hop, that's a proud moment.
To get out our voice, I think that's one of the biggest things, to get out our voice and to speak, maybe to speak for the people that have passed in our lives, to speak for people that maybe aren't doing it anymore, and to be that voice, to keep championing and carrying the torch for people who can't. You know what I'm saying? To be able to do that is a great feeling, because there's a lot of people who have passed away. an artist we were close to. His name was Decky, out of South Louisiana. He passed, and a friend of mine passed this year. And these were guys that all were real supportive. So for us to keep doing our production and getting out other people's dreams that maybe couldn't fulfill themselves, it's awesome. I love doing that. I'm here for a lot of people, not just myself.
A rich sense of purpose in the music, the quality, integrity. It's not about the quantity. The selection of people we work with, being passionate, something you can be proud of that you can play 15 years from now and it doesn't sound dated. That's what I try to brand our company on. Longevity, the duration of good quality art, and just keeping it real with the music and yourself.
Really what it is, I hope people look back and say that he made good music and he put his heart and soul into everything he did, and he didn't half-step and try to marginalize a genre that's as beautiful as hip-hop.